Prostrations to Ramana, shining the self of all beings. By the immense grace of the self manifest as Ramana, we begin today's satsang with a prayer by Srimati Sapna Ganesh, followed by chanting of Muktakatrayam by Sri Nandakumarji.
दक्षिणामूर्ति सारंभां शंकराचार्य मध्यमां रमणाचार्य पर्यन्तां वंदे गुरुपरंपरां वंदे गुरुपरंपरां वंदे गुरुपरंपरां शुक्लां वरधरं विष्णुं शशिवर्णं चतुर्भुजं प्रसन्नवदनं ध्यायेत् सर्वविघ्नोपशान्तये आङ्गिकं भुवनं यस्य वाचिकं सर्ववाङ्मयम् आहार्यं चन्द्रतारादि तं नमः सात्विकं शिवम् ॐ नमो भगवते श्रीरमणाय. Namo Ramana to everyone.
Ekam aksharam hrudi nirantaram bhasate swayam likyate katham हृदय कुहर मध्ये केवलं ब्रह्ममात्रम् यहम् अहम् इति साक्षात् आत्मरूपेण भाति. हृदि विषमनसा स्वं चिन्वता मज्जता वा पवनचलनरोधा आत्मनिष्ठो भवत्वम्. देहं मृण्मयवत् जडात्मकम् अहं बुद्धिर्न तस्यास्त्यतो नाहं तत्तत भावशुक्तिसमये सिद्धात्मसद्भावतः. ओहं भावयुत कुतो रघिया दृष्टात्मनिष्टात्मना सोहं स्फूर्तितया अरुणाचल शिवः पूर्णो विभाति स्वयम्. सोहं स्फूर्तितया अरुणाचल शिवः पूर्णो विभाति स्वयम्.
Namo Ramana. We continue the satsang with chanting of Upadesha Sara by Uma Shripati and Ashwini Balaji.
Namo Ramana. Idamaham pada bhikkyamanvaham ahamilinake pyalaya sattaya vigrahendriya pranaditama nahamekasat tajjadam yasat satvabhasika chitvavetara sattaya hi chittaya hyaham ईश जीवयोर वेशधीबिदा सत्स्वभावतो वस्तु केवलम वेशहानता स्वात्मदर्शनम ईश दर्शनम स्वात्मरूपत आत्मसंस्थिति स्वात्मदर्शनम आत्मनिर्द्वयादात्मनिष्ठता ज्ञानवर्जिता अज्ञानहीन चेत् ज्ञानमस्ति किं नातुमन्तरं किं स्वरूपम् इत्यात्मदर्शने अव्यया भवा अपूर्णचित्सुखं बन्धमुख्यतीतं परं सुखं विन्दति ह जीवस्तु दैविक अहमपेतकं निजविभानकं महदिदं तपो रमणभागियम् नमो रमण.
Namo Ramana. We continue the satsang with the offering of Ramananjali Sangeetam. The first song will be from Srimati V. Radha and Vallabh, and the second one from Revathi Shankar.
Namo Ramana to all. Today we are singing a song composed by Sri Sadhu Swami. என்ன வேண்டும் என்ன வேண்டாம் என்பதை எல்லாம் என்னை விட நன்கறிந்தோன் எம்பெருமானே எனக்கென்ன வேண்டும் என்ன வேண்டாம் என்பதை எல்லாம் என்னை விட நன்கறிந்தோன் எம்பெருமானே தன்னை வேண்டும் அன்பர் தந்தை தாயுமானானே பின்னையார் பின் வேத வேண்டும் பிள்ளையாம் நானே எனக்கென்ன வேண்டும் என்ன வேண்டாம் என்பதை எல்லாம் என்னை விட நன்கறிந்தோன் எம்பெருமானே நான் நினைத்த தீவதென்றால் நியாயமாகுமா ஸ்ரீரமணன் இச்சை அன்றி ஏதும் நல்லதாகுமா நான் நினைத்த தீவதென்றால் நியாயமாகுமா ஸ்ரீரமணன் இச்சை அன்றி ஏதும் நல்லதாகுமா தானினைத்த தீவன் கேட்போன் தாசனாகுமா சர்வமும் அறிந்தோன் செய்கை தப்புமாகுமா எனக்கென்ன வேண்டும் என்ன வேண்டாம் என்பதை எல்லாம் என்னை விட என்னை விட நன்கறிந்தோன் எம்பெருமானே. என்னை விட நன்கறிந்தோன் எம்பெருமானே. என்னை விட நன்கறிந்தோன் எம்பெருமானே. நமோ ரமண.
Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya. We are meditating on the work Ramana Suprabhatam by Shantanandapuri Swami. We are on the 9th verse. वासः कुतो हि भवता विविधस्थलेषु स्कन्दाश्रमादिषु तथा विकृताक्षनाम्नि किं त्वं ध्रुवस्य भगवन्न परावतारः आनन्दचिद्रमणभो तव सुप्रभातम्। वासः कृतो हि भवता विविधस्थलेषु स्कन्दाश्रमादिषु तथा विकृताक्षनाम्नि किं त्वं ध्रुवस्य भगवन्न परावतारः आनन्दचिद्रमणभो तव सुप्रभातम्। Good morning, O Ramana, the supreme consciousness bliss. O Bhagavan, in various places such as Virupaksha, Skandashram have you stayed. Are you really Dhruva incarnate? Bhagavan once he reached Arunachala after staying in many places inside the temple of Arunachaleshwara. He moved on to the hill. On the hill he was staying on Virupaksha cave, Skandashramam. In many places he stayed on the hill also. It is said that Bhagavan has walked inch by inch of Arunachala. He has not left even 1 inch on Arunachala. So we remember the another mother of Bhagavan on Arunachala is said to be Virupaksha. So I am presenting to you a song from our dance ballet Sri Ramana Leela. This is written by Dr. Sharda and music by K.S. Raghunathan. ಜ್ಯೋತಿ ಸ್ವರೂಪ ಶೋಣಾಚಲದಲ್ಲಿ ಬ್ರಹ್ಮ ತೇಜ ಪರಿಪೂರ್ಣ ಅಖಂಡ ಅಮೃತ ಧಾರೆಯ ಸುರಿಸುತ್ತ ಬೆಳಗುತ್ತಿದೆ ವಿರೂಪಾಕ್ಷೆಯಲ್ಲಿ. ಜ್ಯೋತಿ ಸ್ವರೂಪ ಶೋಣಾಚಲದಲ್ಲಿ ಬ್ರಹ್ಮ ತೇಜ ಪರಿಪೂರ್ಣ ಅಖಂಡ ಅಮೃತ ಧಾರೆಯ ಸುರಿಸುತ್ತ ಬೆಳಗುತ್ತಿದೆ ವಿರೂಪಾಕ್ಷೆಯಲ್ಲಿ. ಚಿನ್ನದ ಪಾದವ ಮುಡಿಯಲಿ ಧರಿಸಿ ತಾಪಗಳನ್ನು ತೊಲಗಿಸಿರಿ. ಚಿನ್ನದ ಪಾದವ ಮುಡಿಯಲಿ ಧರಿಸಿ ತಾಪಗಳನ್ನು ತೊಲಗಿಸಿರಿ. ಬನ್ನಿರಿ ಸವೀರಿ ಪಾನವ ಮಾಡಿರಿ ದಾಹವ ತಣಿಸುತ್ತ ಸುಮ್ಮನಿರಿ. ಬನ್ನಿರಿ ಸವೀರಿ ಪಾನವ ಮಾಡಿರಿ ದಾಹವ ತಣಿಸುತ್ತ ಸುಮ್ಮನಿರಿ. ಅರೀರಿ ಭಗವಾನ್ ಶ್ರೀರಮಣ ಮಹರ್ಷಿ ಎಂದು ಗುರುವರನ. ಅರೀರಿ ಭಗವಾನ್ ಶ್ರೀರಮಣ ಮಹರ್ಷಿ ಎಂದು ಗುರುವರನ. ನಮ್ಮಯ ರಮಣ ಮಹಾದೇವ ಜಯ ಜಯ ರಮಣ ಮಹಾದೇವ. It is on Arunachala, when Bhagavan was staying on Arunachala, Ganapati Muni gave him the name Bhagavan Sri Ramana Maharshi. Nammaya Ramana Mahadeva Jaya Jaya Ramana Mahadeva. Ariri Bhagavan Sri Ramana Maharshi Endu Guruvarana. Nammaya Ramana Mahadeva Jaya Jaya Ramana Mahadeva. ಹೊನ್ನಿನ ಬಣ್ಣದ ಚಿನ್ನದ ರಮಣ ಪೂರಣ ಕರುಣಾವದನ. ತನ್ಮಯ ಸ್ವಾತ್ಮಾನಂದ ಸುಗಂಧವ ಎಲ್ಲೆಡೆ ಬೀಸುವ ತರುಣ. ಹೊನ್ನಿನ ಬಣ್ಣದ ಚಿನ್ನದ ರಮಣ ಪೂರಣ ಕರುಣಾವದನ. ತನ್ಮಯ ಸ್ವಾತ್ಮಾನಂದ ಸುಗಂಧವ ಎಲ್ಲೆಡೆ ಬೀಸುವ ಕರ್ತರುಣ. ನಿನ್ನಯ ಮಹಿಮೆಯ ಗಾನವ ಕೇಳುತ್ತ ಹುಡುಕುತ್ತ ಬಂದಿಹೆ ಚರಣ. ನಿನ್ನಯ ಮಹಿಮೆಯ ಗಾನವ ಕೇಳುತ್ತ ಹುಡುಕುತ್ತ ಬಂದಿಹೆ ಚರಣ. ನಮ್ಮಯ ರಮಣ ಮಹಾದೇವ ಜಯ ಜಯ ರಮಣ ಮಹಾದೇವ. ನಮ್ಮಯ ರಮಣ ಮಹಾದೇವ ಜಯ ಜಯ ರಮಣ ಮಹಾದೇವ. ಶ್ರೀಹರಿಯಿಂದ ಎಲ್ಲರ ಹೃದಯದಿ ಬೆಳಗುವ ಪೂರಣ ಬೆಳಕು. ಶ್ರೀಹರಿಯಿಂದ ಎಲ್ಲರ ಹೃದಯದಿ ಬೆಳಗುವ ಪೂರಣ ಬೆಳಕು. ಕಾರಣದಿಂದ ಜನುಮವ ತಾಳಿ ಹೊಳೆಯುತ್ತಿದೆ ಸ್ಕಂದಾಶ್ರಮದಿ. ಕಾರಣದಿಂದ ಜನುಮವ ತಾಳಿ ಹೊಳೆಯುತ್ತಿದೆ ಸ್ಕಂದಾಶ್ರಮದಿ. ನಮ್ಮಯ ರಮಣ ಮಹಾದೇವ ಜಯ ಜಯ ರಮಣ ಮಹಾದೇವ. ನಮ್ಮಯ ರಮಣ ಮಹಾದೇವ ಜಯ ಜಯ ರಮಣ ಮಹಾದೇವ. ಜ್ಯೋತಿ ಸ್ವರೂಪ ಶೋಣಾಚಲದಲ್ಲಿ ಬ್ರಹ್ಮ ತೇಜ ಪರಿಪೂರ್ಣ. ಅಖಂಡ ಅಮೃತ ಧಾರೆಯ ಸುರಿಸುತ್ತ ಬೆಳಗುತ್ತಿದೆ ವಿರೂಪಾಕ್ಷೆಯಲಿ. ಅಖಂಡ ಅಮೃತ ಧಾರೆಯ ಸುರಿಸುತ್ತ ಬೆಳಗುತ್ತಿದೆ ಸ್ಕಂದಾಶ್ರಮದಿ. ಜ್ಯೋತಿ ಸ್ವರೂಪ ಶೋಣಾಚಲದಲ್ಲಿ ಬ್ರಹ್ಮ ತೇಜ ಪರಿಪೂರ್ಣ. ನಮೋ ರಮಣ.
Namo Ramana. We continue the satsang with the reading and sharing from Nandakumarji.
Namo Ramana. In this, the book reading segment of our satsang, we continue to read from Forever is in the Now, the timeless message of Sri Ramana Maharshi, edited and compiled by our founder president, Sri A.R. Natarajanji. We have come to the account of S.S. Cohen, and there is another account by Lucy Cornelison. As these two are well-known devotees of Bhagavan, there is no separate introduction given to them, but all the devotees will be knowing about these two great disciples and followers of Bhagavan, Samuel S. Cohen. The article by Samuel S. Cohen is Crucifixion and Resurrection. Bhagavan was once asked how to still the mind. He answered, looking at the mind by the mind brings the mind under the control of the self. It can be done through vichara alone, equating stillness with mind control. I'll read that again because that is the source from which he is going to discuss. Bhagavan was once asked how to still the mind. He answered, looking at the mind by the mind. Manasa mana alokya, looking at the mind by the mind brings the mind under the control of the self. It can be done through vichara alone, equating stillness with mind control. Seeing the mind by the mind implies that the act of perceiving or knowing is done by the mind alone. As every student of yoga and psychology knows, and not by the body. The nature of the mind is therefore consciousness, intelligence, knowledge, or self. It knows anything on which its attention is focused. If it fixes it on the objects, it will end by identifying itself with and losing itself in the distracting world of objects. It is then called ego or jiva, individuality. On the other hand, if in meditation it gathers itself from the variety to the thought-free unity of itself, It will enjoy the freedom from distraction as well as the bliss of self-awareness, jnana. It is then the self itself. The mind, which used to see things outside, has now turned its gaze upon itself and has discovered the truth of its own nature. This is true liberation, true resurrection from bondage and misery of the ignorant ego to the freedom of the pure spirit. It is the crucifixion of the ego and its ascension to the beatitude of Godhead, the Supreme Atman. Beneficence of the Vichara. Beneficence is kindness in the dictionary. Kindness or the contributory nature to humanity of the sadhana of Vichara. Through Vichara alone, in the above answer, because Bhagavan signifies that the stilling of the mind can be done by Vichara alone. Through Vichara alone, in the above answer, Bhagavan signifies his preference of the path of enquiry to all other approaches, having found it to yield the maximum results in minimum time in cooperation with dhyana, meditation proper. The Vichara, who am I, which has come to be associated with Bhagavan's name, is definitely not a repetitive mantra, but an enquiry into one's own I, its nature, its locus, its scope, whether it changes or not, with the ceaseless changes in the body and in all conditions of life, in health and disease, in pleasure and pain, in youth and old age, etc. So, in self-enquiry, what is found out is that the nature of the I, its locus, that is where it occurs, its scope, whether the I changes or not, with the ceaseless changes in the body and in the conditions of life, that is what is found in Who Am I, he says. Some enquirers find it easier to begin their analysis with the body because it is within their daily and hourly experience. They know its composition, its organization, its actions in various circumstances, its relation to the mind or life which moves it. They may even contrast a body with life to a body without life. They may even contrast a body with life to a body without life in order to draw the right conclusion as to which of the two is the master, the man, the intelligent I, the cadaverous body of the all-potent scintillating life. Thus, they end by separating the body from life or I, which uses it. They constantly changing from the ever-changeless consciousness. Therefore, whether they start with the mind or with the body, the enquiry will lead them to the singleness of the consciousness I, as against the whole world of not I, including the body. The path of Vichara appeals to intellectual seekers. They begin with faith, but soon proceed to consolidate faith by reason and common sense, which will take them up to the actual experience, the immediate apprehension of the reality. Faith, reason, and assiduous application can surmount all obstacles and ripen the mind to obtain a clear vision of itself as the pure, immaculate, eternal consciousness. Obstacles to sadhana. These are literally endless. Every man has problems peculiar to himself, physical, mental, emotional, and whatnot. Added to them are the foolish biases and deep-seated beliefs of all kinds, religious, racial, national, domestic, etc., which are so subtle that the individual himself may not be aware of them. These are hard to extirpate by ordinary means. Extirpate, according to dictionary, is completely remove or destroy. These problems are hard to extirpate by ordinary means. Lucky are the few who start with clean-slated dispositions. They have less hurdles to cross and so make rapid progress. Yet, However serious may be the obstacles, the sadhana in course of time will grind them to dust. So I'll read that again. Yet, however serious may the obstacles be, the sadhana in course of time will grind them to dust. There is really no need to have a detailed enumeration of the obstacles in order to be freed of them. It will be more profitable to know the general principle that the major disease is the world itself, for the simple reason that it is the not self which stands in deadly opposition to the self, barring the slightest sight of it. I'll read that again. There is really no need to have a detailed enumeration of the obstacles in order to be freed of them. It will be more profitable to know the general principle that the major disease is the world itself, for the simple reason that it is the not self which stands in deadly opposition to the self, barring the slightest sight of it. The sovereign remedy is therefore the shutting out of the not self altogether. That is why meditation is recommended. Meditation's main aim is to sweep away all thoughts from the mercurial mind, retaining a single thought, the subject of meditation, to chain it with. Meditation's main aim is to sweep away all thoughts from the mercurial mind, retaining a single thought, the subject of the meditation, to chain it with. Constant elimination of the world ultimately results in complete detachment, vairagya, from everything worldly, causing the permanent thinning away of the thinking process, tanumanasi, through which the light of the self can be perceived and the remaining single thought in dhyana can be absorbed. Thus, vichara and dhyana are the reverse and obverse of the practice. Reverse and obverse is a phrase they use to indicate the two sides of the coin, of the same coin. So, sadhana as vichara and dhyana as two sides of the same coin. Thus, vichara and dhyana are the reverse and obverse of the practice. The former, it is vichara, dialectically exposes the unreality of the not self, the phenomena. Dialectically means by a logical and systematic process. Vichara dialectically exposes the unreality of the not self, the phenomena, and the latter, that is dhyana, completely extinguishes the mind, leaving the self alone to shine as the ever-present light of consciousness in the clear firmament of the heart. That is the article Crucifixion and Resurrection by Samuel S. Cohen. We go on to the second contribution by another great devotee, disciple of Bhagavan, Lucy Cornelsen. She is a writer from Germany who settles down in Tirunamale later. The article is entitled Only Half a Sentence. Only half a sentence of Bhagavan. She quotes from Talks with Sri Ramana Maharshi. To think is not your real nature. That is the half of the sentence she is taking up. To think is not your real nature. Ramana Maharshi, Talks 184. It is only half a sentence. However, it contains a spiritual truth which, when put into practice in everyday life, can lead the sadhaka straight to his goal. To think is not your real nature. It is only half a sentence. However, it contains a spiritual truth which, when put into practice in everyday life, can lead the sadhaka straight to his goal. Still, how many, even among the serious followers of Sri Ramana Maharshi, have ever stopped for a moment in reading it? Still, how many, even among the serious followers of Sri Ramana Maharshi, have ever stopped for a moment in reading this half a sentence? Though it is stressed in the talks by using different kind of type, it is only half a sentence. How can it be of weight? In talks, they have highlighted this portion alone by putting it in italics. I'll read that small part again. To think is not your real nature. The first half of the saying runs. To imagine Mooladhara at bottom, heart at the center, or the head at the top, or over all this is all wrong. In one word, to think is not your real nature. So the first half of the talk, it's a small talk. Only this sentence is there. The sentence I'll read it put together. To imagine Mooladhara chakra at the bottom, the heart chakra at the center, and the Sahasrara or the head at the top or over all this is all wrong. In one word, to think is not your real nature. That is the whole talk 184. The few words Mooladhara, heart, and head used by Bhagavan, used by the master of silence, encompass here the whole body of classic spiritual teachings, the darshanas, the 6 orthodox Hindu philosophies, yoga, and everything else claiming to partake in the basic knowledge of a spiritual way. The darshanas are Sankhya and the other branches. Here, Lucy Cornelius is saying by using those 3 words, Bhagavan is covering all those which use thought. It is all wrong, says sage of Arunachala. Stop thinking. The attentive reader coming across this order asks, how is that done? How can I stop a completely automatic function of my brain? It seems technically impossible. Before we proceed, another doubt has to be cleared. Sir, beautiful segment where she deals with how Bhagavan is using thought. Before we proceed, another doubt has to be cleared. Have not those who sat at the feet of the Master seen him thinking as he answered the questions of devotees and visitors, as he read and corrected proofs, or as he glanced through books or papers or letters? True. To understand the matter, we have to look at the developing of our thinking faculty or its organ, our brain. The human brain developed by being used as the foremost means for surviving in threatening environment. So she goes back to evolution and says the human brain developed by being used as the foremost means for surviving in a threatening environment. And this is its foremost task even up to this day. So she says the function of the brain is to just maintain the survival of the body. To the primitive man, thinking in the context of his environment and situation was a faculty under his control and direction. In the course of the millenniums of evolution, it degenerated from a capacity that was under his control to a compulsory automatic function, which is not anymore under the conscious control and direction of man. To understand this strange statement of the Master, we have to first discover in our thinking the realm which is legitimate field of intellectual activity. Perception by the senses gather facts. Thinking means to discriminate and choose according to necessity. Discriminating leads as the next step to abstract thinking. When the primitive man perceived the strange behavior of sun and moon, their rising and setting, he tried to understand. As far as his life was influenced by those celestial bodies, his thinking was concrete and to the point. But there remained much beyond his understanding. This led to abstract thinking. It went always and goes still from within towards without. It has done this for millions of years. About 10,000 years ago, the evolution of brain and the nervous system of man had reached a state of maturity which caused his thinking to change its direction from without to within onto himself. He discovered a new feeling, that of I. That means he discovered reflexive thinking. This event in the evolution of man was meant to cause him to stop thinking and surrender himself to another higher capacity, intuition. It opened a new dimension of consciousness to him, that of the spirit, whose language is silence. Silence not only of talking, but of the mind, of thinking. So that's how she traces that the thought has to be only under the conscious awareness and not compulsive and habitual and an automated process to which we are slaves. It opened a new dimension of consciousness to him, that of spirit, whose language is silence, silence not only of talking, but of the mind, of thinking. Most men, however, seem to have been intoxicated by the overwhelming possibilities of this new dimension of consciousness. Those who were sufficiently sensitive to the influence of the spirit stopped thinking, and thereby feeling and intending and entering the mystic silence of quiet receptivity, they became saints and sages, the messengers and mediators of the spirit of mankind. Others use the newly won power to build temples and images, rites and ceremonies to keep this mysterious power under their control. They created creeds and cultures and destroyed them one after the other up to the present condition of this, our planet. And they did it by submitting the new dimension of consciousness to their old capacity of thinking, not perceiving that by this method they veiled the new realm and developed an old able servant into a tyrannic master, their capacity of thinking into the compulsion of automatic associations, which nobody could stop anymore. They never discovered that this kind of thinking was not their true nature. It is this truth that the sage of Arunachala brought into the full daylight. This thinking is not your real nature. You will find many wise sayings about the nature of I and mind, spirit and the world, all over the world. But it will be all thinking, all thick curtains veiling the face of spiritual truth. But how to stop thinking? To remove this rotten curtain between man and the reality. There is no magic wand available for this purpose, no conjurer's trick, nor yogic technique. The only way is to try. Do not ask how it is done. Try. Try to watch your thoughts, how they rise and disappear. Try to discriminate their character. Restrict them to move in their legitimate field of everyday life and professional activity. Keep them strictly in the here and now. Don't indulge them in a cherished past. Don't let them dream about the future. Keep them to their task. Try to be aware when they trespass into the forbidden domain of the spirit, but even then, don't use violence in fighting or repressing thoughts. Simply give your attention to another object, another direction. Develop the consciousness of a witness to the world of your thinking. Watch it without letting yourself be carried away by your thoughts. And ask yourself as often as you can remember, is this present thinking process really necessary? If it is not necessary, stop it. It is the only way to cure the mental disease of automatic associative thinking. It takes time. There is no hurry, no shortcut, but the method works. One day or other, you perceive that there is no automatic thinking anymore. And what is more, you perceive that this miracle is really your natural state. As Huang Po, a Zen master, Huang Po expresses it. Omnipresent, void, pure, silent, a glorious and mysterious peaceful joy, and that is all. Then you will know what the sage of Arunachala really meant by his statement to think is not your real nature. I just reread the sadhana she is suggesting and then end with Bhagavan's words. But how to stop thinking? To remove this rotten curtain between man and the reality. There is no magic wand available for this purpose, no conjurer's trick, nor yogic technique. The only way is to try. Do not ask how it is done. Try. Try to watch your thoughts, how they rise and how they disappear. Try to discriminate their character. Restrict them to move in their legitimate field of everyday life and professional activity. Keep them strictly in the here and now. Don't let them indulge in their cherished past. Don't let them dream about the future. Keep them to their task. Try to be aware when the thoughts trespass into the forbidden domain of the spirit. And even then, don't use violence to fighting or repressing thoughts. Simply give your attention to another object, another direction. Develop the consciousness of a witness to the world of your thinking. Watch it without letting yourself be carried away by your thoughts. And ask yourself as often as you remember, is this present thinking process really necessary? If not, stop it. It is the only way to cure the mental disease of automatic associative thinking. And it takes time. There is no hurry and no shortcut, but the method works. One day or other, you will perceive that there is no automatic thinking anymore. And what is more, you perceive that this miracle is really your natural state. As Wang Po expressed it, omnipresent, void, pure, silent, a glorious and mysterious peaceful joy, and that is all. Then you will know what the sage of Arunachala really meant by his statement. To think is not your real nature. Om Namo Bhagavate Shri Ramana.
Namo Ramana. We continue the satsang by the practice of that self-inquiry which Bhagavan has taught, by which we can experience the fact that thinking is not our true nature. The self-inquiry session will be conducted by Dilip Singh.
Namo Ramana. Dhyayet Sharada Chandra Sundaramukam Tamraravinde Bhaktabhishtavarabhayapradakaram Kaupinamatrojjvalam Swatmanandarasanubhuti Sarvanavadyangakam Shrimantam Shri Ramaneshwaram Guruvaram Yogasanadhyasitam Dhyayet Shri Ramaneshwaram Dhyayet Shri Ramaneshwaram Dhyayet Shri Ramaneshwaram Hridaya Kuhara Madhye Kevalam Brahmamatram Yahamahamiti Sakshat Atmarupena Bhati Hridi Vishamanasa Swam Chimbata Majjatava Pavana Chalanarodha Atmanishto Bhavatvam. We will commence today's evening Atma Vichara by listening to Bhagavan's Upadesham. I'll be reading from Guruvachaka Kovai from the chapter Experience of the Truth. The topic is Stilling the Mind. Verse 9:13. For those whose minds stagger around in a chaotic way, everything will prove contrary. Muruganar Swami says, only through quietude of mind will there be any consistency in our experience. Conversely, there will be no peace for those who possess an ego mind that staggers around in chaos under the sway of vasanas. They will never attain a state that is harmony with their experience. Although in their outward turned viewpoint, they have many potential sense pleasures, all will prove contrary to their expectations. I read the verse, for those whose minds stagger around in a chaotic way, everything will prove contrary. As Nandakumarji beautifully brought out to us, that the still mind is the nature, the natural state of all of us. Instead of attending to that or abiding in that state, if on the contrary, we move out thinking that this body is I, this mind is I, give a reality to the appearances which come in the form of thoughts, all we experience is nothing but chaos ever since we start to the end, until we sit back in an Atma Vichara and turn our attention inside to the source. As long as we have outward turn, attending to the thoughts, it's been all our experience that we only experience chaotic situations. A moment will appear nice, the next moment it appears not so good. It may be in the body, it may be in the mind, it may be in the intellect. In some way in the world, whatever that we are perceiving outwards, we can never expect it to be a consistent thing. The vasanas makes us sway, as Bhagavan says here. So it's very important, therefore, that we don't attend to any thoughts. No matter how many thoughts arise, and whatever may be the nature of the thought, the good, bad, or ugly, or even spiritual, we should turn our attention away, because it's all nothing but the ego nature. Because the natural state of ours is the thought-free state. And therefore, we should diligently inquire to whom are these thoughts, to whom is this thought. And thereupon it becomes clear it is for me. And that reveals that we have given the wrong identity to this body or mind. Therefore, we should inquire, who am I? And turn our attention. What do I really refer to as I? Or where from this thought I as arising? When we turn our attention to the source of the thought, the mind gets subsided in that truth, which is wherein there is absolutely no thought, no going, no doing, no knowing. It is the perfect stillness. And by repeatedly practicing it, it becomes very clear that that is the natural state of us. And everything else, when we move away from that natural state, that still state, we are in fact inviting chaotic state by ourselves. It becomes very clear. Therefore, Bhagavan says, repeatedly turn the attention back to the self. The immense grace of Bhagavan, with which alone we have come to this most direct path of attending to our natural state, the still mind. Let us do Atma Vichara for the next 10 minutes.
We continue the satsang with a sharing from Sri Venkatesh Deshpandeji. This is on Dakshinamurti Stotra.
Oh. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahano Bhunattu Sahaviram Karvavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Guru Brahma Guru Vishnu Guru Devo Maheshwaraha Guru Sakshat Parabrahma Tasmai Shri Guruve Namah. Dakshinamurti Sarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Acharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam. By Bhagavan's grace, we are doing manana on Dakshinamurti Stotram. So why are we doing the manana on Dakshinamurti Stotram? That's something we should all know. Knowing Paramatma as my Swarupa, knowing Paramatma as my Swarupa, what happens? Knowing which I'll be free from sorrow forever. In jnana, even the heaviest sorrow will not disturb me. So that is the gain. The gain will be even in heaviest of sorrows, there will be no disturbance in our mind. That's the gain. So today we will start the Dhyana Shloka, and I request Sapna to kindly chant the Dhyana Shloka, please.
Sure, sir. मौनव्याख्या प्रकटितः परब्रह्मतत्त्वं युवानं वसिष्ठान्ते वसदृशिगणैः आवृतं ब्रह्मनिष्ठैः आचार्येन्द्रं करकलितचिन्मुद्रमानन्दमूर्तिं स्वात्मा रामं मुदितवदनं दक्षिणामूर्तिमीडे मौनव्याख्या प्रकटितः परब्रह्मतत्त्वं युवानं वर्षिष्ठान्ते वसदृशिगणैः आवृतं ब्रह्मनिष्ठैः आचार्येन्द्रं करकलितचिन्मुद्रमानन्दमूर्तिं स्वात्मा रामं मुदितवदनं दक्षिणामूर्तिमीडे. Thank you, sir.
I salute Sri Dakshinamurti, the young Guru who teaches the knowledge of Brahman through silence, who is surrounded by disciples who are themselves rishis and scholars in the Vedas. I worship Sri Dakshinamurti, who is a teacher of teachers, whose hand is held in the sign of knowledge, Chinmudra, whose nature is fullness, who reveals in himself and who is ever silent. So we will, as part of this manana, we will actually read inputs from the letters to Ramana Maharshi as well as talks with Sri Ramana Maharshi. So we will just try to understand what Bhagavan has said at various points. So while the one I'm doing manana on is the letters, the incarnation of Sri Dakshinamurti. While translating Dakshinamurti Stotram into Tamil verse with commentary, Bhagavan summarized the original story about the reason for Dakshinamurti's incarnation and wrote it in the preface. Besides that, he divided 9 shlokas therein into 3 groups. There are 10 shlokas, 9 of them were into 3 groups dealing with the world, the seer, and the seen respectively.
The first three verses are with the origin of the world. The next three verses deal with the seer, and the last three with the light with which the things are seen. The last shloka means that the whole universe is merged into Brahman. So it goes like this. Brahma asked Sanat Kumara, and then Sananandana and Sanat Sujata, who are the creations of the mind, who are the creations of his mind, to assist him in the task of creation. But they were not interested in that task and so declined to assist. They were surrounded by the heavenly gods, saints, and other attendants, and were staying in Nandanavana. And so they were considering who would impart to them jnana, the supreme wisdom. Narada appeared and said, Narada appeared and said, who can impart the Brahma Jnana, the supreme wisdom, except Brahma himself? Come on, we shall go to him. They all agreed and proceeded to Satyaloka, the abode of Brahma, and found Saraswati playing the veena while Brahma, seated in front of her, enjoying the music and beating time to the tune. They all beheld the scene and wondered how a person who is engrossed in the appreciation of his wife's music could teach them Adhyatma Tattva, the essence of spirituality. Narada said to them, come, let us go to Vaikuntha, the abode of Vishnu. They all proceeded thither. The Lord was in the interior of his residence. Narada is, however, a privileged person, and so he went directly into Lord's abode, saying that he would see and come back. Soon he came out, and when asked, told them, there Brahma was seated a little away from his wife, who was playing the veena for him, but here the goddess Lakshmi is seated on the god's couch and is massaging his feet. This is much worse. How can this family man, who is spellbound by the intimate glances of his consort, render us any help in the learning of Adhyatma Vidya? Look at the splendor of this palace and this city. This is no good. Let us go and seek the help of Lord Shiva. So they all proceeded towards Himachala, and seeing Mount Kailash, they ascended it with great hopes. But there in the midst of a vast gathering of his fellows was Shiva performing his celestial dance and his wife sharing half of his body. Vishnu was playing on the drum and Brahma was keeping time with the bells as an accompaniment for the dance. They who came eagerly seeking spiritual guidance were aghast at the sight and thought, oh, he too is after women. Brahma was no doubt having his wife sitting very close to, but was not in physical contact with her, while Vishnu was in physical contact with his wife, but she was merely massaging his legs. But Shiva is actually keeping Parvati as part of his body. This is much worse. Enough of this. And they all departed. Shiva understood and was sorry for them. He said, what delusion on their part! They regard the three Godheads as devoid of spiritual wisdom, merely because they were being served by their respective wives at the time the devotees saw them. Who else can impart spiritual knowledge to them, to these earnest seekers of truth? Thus thinking, Shiva sent away Parvati on the plea of himself doing tapas, and the kind-hearted Lord seated himself in the guise of a youth with Chin Mudra as Dakshinamurti under a banyan tree on the northern side of Lake Manasarovar, just on the way by which these disappointed devotees were returning to their respective homes. I read this story somewhere, said Bhagwan. How interesting is the story? Why did not Bhagwan include it in the introduction? I asked. I cannot say. I thought it is unnecessary for me to record all these incidents of Dakshinamurti's life in the introduction. I included only as much as required for the Ashta, 8 shlokas, replied Bhagwan. On further inquiry, it was found that the story was narrated by Shiva Rahasya, 10th canto, 2nd chapter, under the heading The Incarnation of Dakshinamurti. A devotee who heard this asked, does incarnation mean birth of Sri Dakshinamurti? Where is the question of a birth for him? It is one of the 5 Murtis, forms of Shiva. It means that he is seated facing south in Mauna Mudra, silence posture. It is the want of formlessness that is indicated in its inner meaning. It is the Murti, the form, which is described in Dakshinamurti Ashtaka. It is not the want of formlessness. Sri Dakshinamurti, Sri means Maya Shakti, illusory force. One meaning of Dakshina is efficient, another meaning it is in the heart, on the right side of the body. Amurti means formlessness. A lot of commentary on this possible, isn't it? The same devotee asked, Sanaka and others are described in the Bhagavata Puranas as young boys of 5 years of age for all time. But their stotra says, Riddha Shishya Guru Yuva, old disciples and young Guru. How is that? Jnanis, the wise, always remain young. There is no youth and no old age for them. The description Vriddha and Shishya, old and disciple, means that Sanaka and the others were old in actual age. Though they are old in years, they remain everlastingly young in appearance, said Bhagwan. I give below my translation of the introduction written by Bhagwan. Sanaka, Sanadana, Sanat Kumara and Sanat Sujata, who are 4 sons born from the mind of Brahma, learned that they were brought into existence to further the creation of the world. But they were not interested in the task and sought only truth and knowledge and wandered in search of the Guru. Lord Shiva sympathized with those earnest seekers of the truth and himself sat under the banyan tree in the silent state of Dakshinamurti, silent state as Dakshinamurti with Chin Mudra. Sanaka and others observed him and were at once attracted to him like iron by a magnet and attained self-realization in his presence in no time. To those who are not able to know the real significance of the silent and original form of Dakshinamurti, Shankara summarized the universal truth in his stotra and explained to Uttamadhikaris, means highly developed souls, and that the Shakti force which dissolves the 3 obstacles for realization of truth, that is the world, the seer and the seen, is not different from one's own self, and that everything gets ultimately merged into one's own self. So Bhagwan beautifully has told us about the story of Dakshinamurti, and in silence that he was able to impart the highest to the 4 of them. The other day there was a talk in Sri Bhagwan's presence about old songs. Bhagwan said, Mother used to sing Dakshinamurti stotras and other Vedantic songs. They used to be full of meaning. Nobody cares about them nowadays, but it would be a very good thing if they were edited and published. So what the great ones say and is that if you recite, even if you don't know the Dakshinamurti, even if you recite it, what happened by reciting it, you will develop devotion for God. And once you start developing the devotion for God, then automatically what happens? It will lead you to jnanam and bhakti, jnana and bhakti. So that is the benefit of doing the Dakshinamurti Stotra. So there are many talks and there are many letters on this. We will continue to read about the different letters and talks in the next couple of sessions, and then we will go into the actual shlokas. Bhagwan's grace, may we all go inside and feel the silence within and be always abiding in the source and become fearless and free. Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya. Namo Ramana.
Namo Ramana. We continue today's session of our Satsangh with the sharing by Sri Ujjwal Jagdish on Ramanacentre Bengaluru.
Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya. We are meditating on verses written by Ganapati Muni, which were compiled by Bhagavan Ramana himself and was titled Ramanacentre Bengaluru. We are on the 15th verse, where Ganapati Muni sings, Kechit yoga vidam purasara iti prajnani buddhya pare sadhu kashtidati tare gurudiya kepyangri padmam tava sevante ramana vidana manuja क्षेमाय जातक्षितो द्वित्रास्त्वां गिरिजाङ्कपीठनिलयं जानन्ति देवं गुहं रमणाय लोकगुरवे नमः रमणाय लोकगुरवे नमः रमणनिगे लोकगुरुविगे नमः रमणनिगे लोकगुरुविगे नमः ಕೆಲವರು ಯೋಗಿ ಶ್ರೇಷ್ಠನೆಂದೆಣಿಸುವರು ಜ್ಞಾನಿ ಎಂದೆಣಿಸುವರು ಇತರರು ಸಾಧು ಎಂದೆಣಿಸುವರು ಇತರರು ಗುರು ಎಂದು ನಿನ್ನ ಪದ ಕಮಲವ ಸೇವಿಪರು ರಮಣಾಂಕಿತನೇ ಮನುಜ ಕ್ಷೇಮಕ್ಕೆ ಭುವಿಜಾತನೇ ವಿರಳರು ಗಿರಿಜಾಂಕ ಪೀಠ ಸ್ಥಿತ ಸ್ಕಂದನೆಂದರಿವರು ರಮಣನಿಗೆ ಲೋಕ ಗುರುವಿಗೆ ನಮನ ರಮಣನಿಗೆ ಲೋಕ ಗುರುವಿಗೆ ನಮನ. We salute to that Ramana who is the Loka Guru, who this year we are celebrating the 125th year of Ramana coming to Arunachala and being available to the whole world as Guru. And Ganapati Muni says that Ramana is available as the Guru at Arunachala. And that Arunachala is no different from the Ahame Arunachalam, the heart which is Arunachala. And Ramana is ever available as the Guru there. And we turn towards the self only when we are in difficulty. Sankata Bandaga, Venkata Ramana. We say we call out to God only when we are in difficulty. So Ganapati Muni here says, many people turn towards you only when they are in difficulty, only when they are in a problem, when they are not able to solve the problem with their own effort. They turn to you, O Ramana, who is ever available in the Arunachala, which is the heart. But only a very few people, 2 or 3, Dvitrastvam, alone understand who you really are. You are that Skanda who is residing on the Pitha of your mother Uma, Girija, on her lap you are residing and ever available to all of you. Only few people understand. The Upanishad says that about the self, that it says that those who say, I know, do not know. And those who say, who do not know, me know the self. So that is what the Upanishads say. And here, the commentator on the Ramanacentre, who is the student of Kapali Shastri, yes, Shankar Narayan sir, he says that among the 2 or 3, I'm sure Ganapati Muni is one of them, because he was the one who had known the truth that he is Bhagavan. When he came and surrendered to Bhagavan Ramana in the Virupaksha cave during the November 18th, nearing November 18th, and he climbed up the hill to Virupaksha cave and fell at the feet of that Brahmana Swami, and he shed tears and he did Abhishekam with his tears to the lotus feet of Bhagavan Ramana. He did the seva to that lotus feet and told Bhagavan Ramana, Swami, I have read all the Shastras and I have done Kotyana Koti Japa and I have understood all the essence of the Vedas. Still, I do not experience the experience of that peace of the self which the Vedas and the Upanishads describe. I am sure that the Vedas and Upanishads cannot be wrong. There is some lacuna in my penance. Please tell me what is the true meaning of tapas. And Ramana, who was silent, after he had come to Tiruvannamalai, he was silent for 11 years, and he broke his silence and gave the first spoken Upadesha to Ganapati Muni, and he told, find out from where the I thought arises and merge at its source. That is true tapas. And he continued, because Ganapati Muni had done Kotyana Koti Japa, he told, find out from where the sound of the mantra arises from within and merge at its source. That is true tapas. And as soon as Ganapati Muni heard this Upadesha, he had the experience of the peace of the self, and he woke up from that experience and he realized this human being that I am seeing is not an ordinary human being. He is divine himself. So he should be called Bhagavan. And he is Ramana. He is dear to all. And that which is dear to all is our own very self. So he is the embodiment of this self. And he is ever reveling in that joy of the self. So he should be called Ramana. And he is the greatest of the rishis. He is the Maharishi. He is the rishis of rishis. He is the seer of the seers. So he should be called Maharshi. And he gave the name Bhagavan Shri Ramana Maharshi. And he knew that this man who I'm seeing is not an ordinary human being. He is Bhagavan himself. And he knew that he is none other than Skanda himself, his own brother. He is Ganapati and he is his own brother, Skanda, who has come to give the Upadesha. So he knew the truth. And he does not mention here that I am one of them who know here. Later verses we see that Devi Shaktiriyam Drisho Shatadar Swantakshayadaini. He says, he describes Ramana as the various Devis, and he says, how can a Pamara like me, how can a common man like me describe your glory, O Vishvacharya Mahanubhava Ramana? Tvam Stautuka Prakritaha. How is this Prakritaha, this Pamara, how this illiterate person can describe your glory, as Ganapati Muni has told. And this proves that point of the Upanishads, where those who know and understand and realize the self, they do not express that they know. So Ganapati Muni was one among them who knew the truth, and he spread this message to all his students, and through his students to the whole world, that this Bhagavan Ramana, who is divine, and the Guru who has come in the human form, is available at Tiruvannamalai, at Arunachala. Is available in the heart, Arunachala, and everybody can turn towards him to find solace. And those are the great ones who have spread their message by their reminiscences, by their works, and they are calling us. Whenever we are reading this verse, it is the call of these jnanis who have understood Ramana, who have understood the self, and they are calling us to turn back to that Ramana who is ever shining in the Arunachala, the heart. Om Namo Bhagavate Shri Ramana.
Namo Ramana. By the immense grace of the self, manifest as Ramana, we are meditating on the 108 names, the litany of 108 names, composed by Vishwanatha Swami on Bhagavan. And we are on the Nama Srimad Dwadashanta Mahasthale Labdha Vidyodayaya Namaha. We are meditating on the different forms of learning that Ramana chose to bless when he was a boy of 15, 13, 14, 15. Sundaramayar passed away when he was 12. So after that, Bhagavan was at Madurai. In his teens, he was at Madurai till he was 16, and then after that, he left for Tiruvannamalai. So he learnt the joy of friendship. He learnt the beauty of the Tamil language. And what all he learnt, he expressed it very beautifully later. We find all the magnificent compositions of Bhagavan in Tamil as his gift to Mother Saraswati, who came to him as Tamil in the Dwadashanta Mahasthala, Labdha Vidyodaya. That Vidya Rupini Saraswati came to him in different forms in Madurai. He came in the form of play with his friends. And what a friend he was. Later years, we read of many of his friends coming and meeting him, and especially among them, we read of Velachari Ranga Ranga to Bhagavan, coming and meeting him. When he was in Skandashram, Ranga wonders, will Bhagavan recognize me? 20 years later, 1896, Bhagavan had left home for Arunachala. And 20 years after that, 1916, Rangayar comes to visit Bhagavan. And even as he is approaching Skandashram, even as he is on the steps, Bhagavan, who is washing his face, or near that, there is a small little projection in Skandashramam with a little compound wall from which you can see right almost up to the bottom of the hill. And Bhagavan is looking down there, waiting for Rangan to come, as it were, and turns to Mother Aragamma and says, Amma, Rangan has come. And Rangan is overwhelmed at the love of Bhagavan, at the friendship of Bhagavan. And he says, I cannot imagine that you and Mother Aragamma still remember me. And Bhagavan says, okay, it is not 20 years since we met. You had come when I was at Virupaksha cave as well. You had come with your wife, but you did not greet me or speak to me. You saw me from a distance and went away. So that is how Bhagavan showered love on his friends, the friendship of Ramana, which will also manifest in a later name in the Ashtottaram. And then we had Bhagavan learning that Arunachalam is a place on earth. And he has composed the verse, Aduvetalam Arunachalam Talam Yavilum Adhigam. That alone is the place on earth. Bhagavan learnt that Arunachala is a place on earth. He later writes, Aduvetalam. That alone is the place That alone is a place to which we need to go. And that place is one's own heart. Ahame Arunachalam. Aham means home also in Tamil. That beautifully it expresses. Home is Arunachala. That is the place where we have to go. The heart is Arunachala. That is the place to which we have to go. And he learnt that Arunachala is a place on earth. And further, he learnt about the glory of devotion, of bhakti, through the lives of the 63 Nayanmars, the Saivite saints. And Bhagavan had such great melting love for the Lord. In later years, he would say, I wonder how people talk about the glories of the Lord, how they narrate stories without melting in tears and choking. How is it that they are able to speak about it? He himself would very often choke. In Day by Day with Bhagavan, Devraj Mudaliyar records, and so does Suri Nagama in Letters from Sri Ramanashram. She also records instances where Bhagavan would choke with bhakti. When he was reading out some paragraph about any of the great ones, it may be any of the devotees of Shiva, he would just be in tears of bhakti. The tenderness of the heart, it became manifest in Bhagavan in that manner, through his diving into the Periya Puranam. That tenderness in his heart came forth, and it was something which was not only in stories of bhakti. Bhagavan, wherever there was love and expressed, Bhagavan's heart would melt. It is also recorded that in one instance where there is a beauty of the friendship of Kamban and the king, I think it is the Chola Maharaja, their friendship, there was so beautiful. And when Bhagavan would talk about it, again his eyes would fill with tears and he would choke and he would stop reading. He could not proceed further. So much was that love which was in him and which welled up on reading the Periya Puranam, because of which he calls Arunachala Anburu Arunachala. You are Arunachala, you know who you are. You are not a mountain. You are just love. Your form is pure love. Anburu Arunachala. And having got all this, seated on mother's lap, as Ujjwal Jagadish just told us, seated on mother's lap, Professor K. Swaminathan writes that Bhagavan moved from his mother's lap to his father's arms. He was seated on his mother's lap in Madurai, as it were, and he just leaped from his mother's lap into the embrace of the father. Arunachala, says Professor Swaminathan. From the lap of the green mother to the embrace of the red father, Arunachala, the red father, the red hill as he is called, Arunachala. So Bhagavan moved, taught by the mother. The mother is the one who teaches us. She is our first teacher always. The mother is our teacher even before we are born. Because when we are in the mother's womb, what all the mother hears, the child also hears. The child in the mother's womb. We have the famous instances in our scriptures of Prahlada, who heard the Narayana mantra, who was initiated, as it were, into the Narayana mantra when he was in his mother's womb. We have heard of Abhimanyu listening to Sri Krishna describing the intricacies of the Chakra Vyuha to his sister Subhadra. At that time, Abhimanyu was in her womb, in his mother's womb. He learned how to enter the Chakra Vyuha. So the learning comes from the mother. Whatever the mother hears during the time of her pregnancy, the child also absorbs. So we find that now science also accepts this truth that yes, the inputs which the mother gets at that time reach the child as well. So we find that actually if someone has been listening to Akshara Manamalai during the time of their pregnancy, the children easily relate to the Akshara Manamalai afterwards. It becomes something which is a part of them, an integral part of them. It suits them. It gives them great joy. And so Bhagavan was taught by Mother Meenakshi. He was taught that significance of the upsurge of love. And love leads to faith. It leads to faith, absolute faith. And this we see in Bhagavan's life. Nowhere probably can we find a parallel of such bhakti, the absolute faith in Arunachala, unquestioning faith in Arunachala, be it on his journey to Arunachala or afterwards, what made him abandon everything. He had, of course, already abandoned home, but throw away his clothes, what little food he had with him, what little money he had with him, everything he threw away, leaving himself totally to the care of Arunachala. That bhakti, he was inspired by the 63 Saivate saints, and he says that he prayed for such bhakti. But what did Arunachala give him? Arunachala gave him the immensity, the entire kingdom of love. Arunachala gave himself to Bhagavan. When Bhagavan prayed, give me bhakti like them, O Shiva, Arunachala gave him the very magnificence of bhakti, the entirety of bhakti, which Sri Adi Shankara refers to as Swaswarupa Anusandhanam Bhaktiritya. He says that practicing one's own self, abiding in one's own self is true bhakti. And Bhagavan says in Upadesha Saram that the supreme bhakti is the Abheda Bhavana. Bhavashunya Sadbhavana Sustitihi Bhavana Balat Bhaktiruttama. First the Abheda Bhavana and then the Bhavashunya Sadbhava Susti. To abide in that state where there is no second, where there are no thoughts, as we heard in Lucy Amma's narration and reiterated by Dilip Simha as well. And that state of supreme bhakti was bestowed upon him. And therefore, Vishwanatha Swami says, because we say bestowed upon him, Vishwanatha Swami says, Mahashakti Nipatena Prabuddhaya Namaha. After becoming immersed in love, what happened was that supreme force came down and enveloped him. We say in the word avatarana. Avatarana means came down. It comes down. Avatara of the great ones we speak about, coming down. What does that coming down mean? It means that it can come to one's level of understanding. And that's what we find in every teaching. We find that Bhagavan, if he starts Upadesha Saram, step by step, he actually comes down. He starts by saying, Karturagneya prapyate phalam karma kim param karma tajjadam. There is nothing to be done. There is no meaning in action. If we really get the full import of that, karma tajjadam, if we understand that action is absolutely insentient, absolutely incapable of giving us any fruits whatsoever, why would we indulge in action? And the primary action being thoughts, we would not indulge in it. But because we are not capable of understanding this or accepting it in the very first listening, then Bhagavan goes on to say, don't you understand that by action you will only keep falling into the sea of further and further action? So like this, he comes down step by step to explain to us. And therefore it's called the avatarana, coming down, nipata, mahashakti nipata, that huge force came down upon this young Bhagavan, the young Venkataraman, the innocent boy Venkataraman, totally unexposed to anything, who had learnt a few simple things, beautiful things, the simple things of devotion, of supreme faith in Arunachala, the beauty of friendship, and the understanding of the love for language and expression, because that was a task given to him by Arunachala. Few simple things. He had never been out of his house, practically not out of his house. Young child, innocent, young heart, full of love, ready to receive that huge force, Mahashakti. And it came down and awakened him, says Vishwanatha Swami. We may wonder whether there is coming down or going up. In another sense, we can look at it as in the sadhana, in the traditional sadhana, if we look at it, the Shakti, it moves upwards. The Shakti is, even in our dance, we show it moving upwards, and it goes to the Sahasrara, the blossoming of the Sahasrara, the 1,000-petaled lotus. Happens as a part of this, the spiritual process. The energy moves upwards. The energy moves upwards through the chakras, going through the Ajna and going to the Sahasrara. And then what has to happen, says Bhagavan, that Shakti has to be absorbed by the spiritual heart. It has to come down. Mahashakti nipatena prabuddhaha. When that energy comes down into the spiritual heart, it descends into the spiritual heart, the awakening happens. In the process of self-inquiry, Bhagavan tells us to take the Shakti, to make the Nipata of the Shakti, to actually live that process with every thought. Normally, when we think also, we feel as if we are thinking in our head. So, Bhagavan says, take that power. Thought is a power. Mind is a power. Adishaya Shakti, says Bhagavan of the mind. Take that Adishaya Shakti, that power, Nipata. Drop it into the heart. Drop it into the heart. And the awakening will happen, says Bhagavan. And Vishwanatha Swami describes the awakening of Bhagavan in these, one may say, mystical terms, but also in a way that Bhagavan has opened out every mystery for us, made it very naturally available to us. And this is what is, in a way, indicated by Vishwanatha Swami in this Nama on Bhagavan. Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya. We go on to the chanting of verses from Bhagavan's Aksharamana Malai by Srimati Radha and Vallabh.
Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala, Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala. வீடு விட்டி துள வீடு புக்கு பய உன் வீடு காட்டினை அருளருணாச்சலா. வெளி விட்டேன் செயல் வெறுத்திடாதுன் அருள் வெளி விட்டென்னை காருணாச்சலா. வேதாந்தத்தே வேரற விளங்கும் வேத பொருள் அருளருணாச்சலா. வைதலை வாழ்த்தா வைத்தருள் குடியா வைத்தென்னை விடாதருள் அருணாச்சலாம். அம்பு வெள்ளாலி போல் அன்புரு என்னை அன்பா கரைத்தருள் அருணாச்சலா. அருணை என்று அருள் கண்ணிப்பட்டேன் முன் அருள் வல்லை தப்புமோ அருணாச்சலா. சிந்தித்தருள்பட சிலந்தி போல் கட்டி சிறையீட்டுண்டென்னை அருணாச்சலா. அன்போடு நாமம் கேடன்பர்த்தம் அன்பரு கண்பனாயிட அருள் அருணாச்சலா. என் போலும் தீனரை இன்புற காத்து நீ என்னாலும் வாழ்ந்தருள் அருணாச்சலா. என் புரு கண்பர்த்தம் என் சொற்கள் செவியும் என் பொன்மொழி கொள அருள் அருணாச்சலா. பொறுமையாம் பூதர புன் சொல்லை நம் சொல்ல பொறுத்தருள் இஷ்டம் பின் அருணாச்சலா. மாலை அளித்தருணாச்சல ரமண என் மாலை அணிந்தருள் அருணாச்சலா. மாலை அளித்தருணாச்சல ரமண என் மாலை அணிந்தருள் அருணாச்சலா. அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல சிவ 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 அருணாச்சலா. அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சலா. அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சலா. அருணாச்சலம் வாழி அன்பர்களும் வாழி. அக்ஷரமண மாலை வாழி. Namo Ramana.
Namo Ramana. We conclude today's satsang with Ashtotra Puja to Bhagavan, performed at Dilip's altar. And the Ashtotra will be chanted by Vaibhavji and Prarthana and Ashwini Balaji and Uma Shripati.
नमो रमण भारद्वाज विश्वनाथ विरचितं श्रीरमणाष्टोत्तर शतनामावलिः अपार सच्चित् सुखवारिणाशे यस्योर्मिमात्रं भुवनं समस्तं गुहाहितं तं रमणं कबीरं चिन्ताविहीनं चिन्तयामि. ॐ महासेन नमः शेन जाताय नमः. ॐ श्रीरमणाय नमः. ॐ गुरवे नमः. पराशरकुलोत्तंसाय नमः। ॐ सुन्दराय तपःफलाय नमः। ॐ कमनीयसुचारित्राय नमः। ॐ सहायाम्बासहायवते नमः। ॐ शोणाचलमहोलीनमानसाय नमः। ॐ स्वर्णहस्तकाय नमः। ॐ श्रीमद्द्वादशान्तमहास्थले लब्धविद्योदयाय नमः। ॐ महाशक्तिनिपातेन प्रबुद्धाय नमः। ॐ परमार्थविदे नमः। ॐ तीव्राय नमः। ॐ पितृपदान्वेषिणे नमः। ॐ इन्दुमौलिनामितृमते नमः। ॐ पितुरादेशतः शोणशैलं प्राप्ताय नमः। ॐ तपोमयाय नमः। ॐ उदासीनाय नमः। ॐ महायोगिने नमः। ॐ महोत्साहाय नमः। ॐ कुशाग्रये नमः। ॐ शान्तसङ्कल्पसंरम्भाय नमः। ॐ सुसन्दृशे नमः। ॐ सवित्रे नमः। ॐ स्थिराय नमः। ॐ सपक्षपितसर्वाङ्गाय नमः। ॐ फुल्लाम्बुजविलोचनाय नमः। ॐ चन्द्रिकासिरहासश्रीमण्डिताननमण्डलाय नमः। ॐ चूतवाट्यां समासीनाय नमः। ॐ चूर्णिताखिलविभ्रमाय नमः। ॐ वेदवेदान्ततत्त्वज्ञाय नमः। ॐ चिन्मुद्रिणे नमः। ॐ त्रिगुणातिगाय नमः। ॐ विरूपाक्षगुहावासाय नमः। ॐ विराजदचलाकृतये नमः। ॐ उद्दीप्तनयनाय नमः। ॐ पूर्णाय नमः। ॐ रचिताचलताण्डवाय नमः। ॐ गम्भीराय नमः। ॐ परमाचार्याय नमः। ॐ सुप्रसन्नाय नमः। ॐ अभयप्रदाय नमः। ॐ दक्षिणास्य निभाय नमः। ॐ धीराय नमः। ॐ दक्षिणाभिमुखाय नमः। ॐ स्वराजे नमः। ॐ महर्षये नमः। ॐ भगवते नमः। ॐ ईड्याय नमः।
ॐ भूमविद्याविशारदाय नमः। ॐ विमलाय नमः। ॐ दीर्घदर्शिने नमः। ॐ आप्ताय नमः। ॐ ऋजुमार्गप्रदर्शकाय नमः। ॐ समदृशे नमः। ॐ सत्यदृशे नमः। ॐ सत्याय नमः। ॐ प्रशान्ताय नमः। ॐ अमितविक्रमाय नमः। ॐ सुकुमाराय नमः। ॐ सदानन्दाय नमः। ॐ मृदुभाषिणे नमः। ॐ दयार्णवाय नमः। ॐ श्री शोणाचलहृद्भूतस्कन्दाश्रमनिकेतनाय नमः। ॐ सद्दर्शनोपदेष्ट्रे नमः। ॐ सद्भक्तवृन्दपरिवृताय नमः। ॐ गणेशमुनिभृङ्गेन सेविताङ्घ्रिसरोरुहाय नमः। ॐ गीतोपदेशसारादिग्रन्थसञ्चिन्न संशयाय नमः। ॐ वर्णाश्रममतातीताय नमः। ॐ रसज्ञाय नमः। ॐ सौम्याय नमः। ॐ आत्मवते नमः। ॐ सर्वावनिमतस्थानाम् आराध्याय नमः। ॐ सर्वसद्गुणिने नमः। ॐ आत्मारामाय नमः। ॐ महाभागाय नमः। ॐ मातृमुक्तिविधायकाय नमः। ॐ विनताय नमः। ॐ विनुताय नमः। ॐ विप्राय नमः। ॐ मुनीन्द्राय नमः। ॐ पावकोज्ज्वलाय नमः। ॐ कर्षनादगसंहारिणे नमः। ॐ मौनेन स्वात्मबोधकाय नमः। ॐ हृच्छान्तिकरसान्निध्याय नमः। ॐ स्मरणात् बन्धमोचकाय नमः। ॐ अन्तस्तिमिरचण्डांशवे नमः। ॐ संसारार्णवतारकाय नमः। ॐ शोणाद्वीषस्तुतिद्रष्टे नमः। ॐ हार्दविद्याप्रकाशकाय नमः। ॐ अविच्युतनिजप्रज्ञाय नमः। ॐ नैसर्गिकमहातपसे नमः। ॐ कमण्डलुधराय नमः। ॐ शुभ्रकौपीनवसनाय नमः। ॐ गुहाय नमः। ॐ दण्डपाणये नमः। ॐ कृपापूर्णाय नमः। ॐ भवरोगविषग्वराय नमः। ॐ स्कन्दाय नमः। ॐ देवतमाय नमः। ॐ अमर्त्याय नमः। ॐ सेनान्ये नमः। ॐ पुरुषोत्तमाय नमः।
ॐ श्रीरमण भगवते नमः। श्रीरमणाष्टोत्तरशतनामपूजां समर्पयामि। यः स्थाणोररुणाचलस्य पदयोः स्मृत्या जनिं प्राप्य तत् दिव्यानुग्रहसुप्रवाहविवशस्तादात्म्यभावं गतः निष्ठस्वगभीरनित्यतपसा लोकान् पुनास्येकराट् तस्मै श्रीरमणाय ते नम इदं लोकोत्तरज्योतिषे। नमो 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 रमण सदाशिव प्रभावरण नमो महर्षि नमो महर्षि दर्शन सुख मंगल मुख सकल जीवहित सम्मुख ब्रह्म संगिये नमो 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 रमण सदाशिव प्रभावरण नमो महर्षि नमो महर्षि सदा तुष्ट सदा हृष्ट सदा शिवानंद पुष्ट परम महर्षि ब्रह्मनिष्ठ समदर्शी नमो 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 रमण सदाशिव प्रभावरण नमो महर्षि नमो महर्षि ನಮ್ಮ ಮನವದೊಂದು ಕಾಡು ನೀನರಿತಿಹೆ ಅದರ ಜಾಡು ಹಿತವನರಿತು ನೀಡುತ್ತೆಮ್ಮ ಕೊರೆಯ ತಣಿಸಲೈ ಮೇಡಲೆಂದು ಬಂದ ನಾವು ನೋಡಿಯೇ ತಣಿವೆವಯ್ಯ ಮೋಡಿಗಾರನೇ ಹಿತವ ನುಡಿದು ಪೊರೆ ನಮ್ಮನು ಬ್ರಹ್ಮ ಸಂಘಿಯೇ ನಮೋ 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 ರಮಣ ಸದಾಶಿವ प्रभावरण नमो महर्षि नमो महर्षि नमो 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 रमण सदाशिव प्रभावरण नमो महर्षि नमो महर्षि। बोलो भगवान श्री रमण महर्षि की
जय।
जय।